Good Monday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. The legal tampering or negotiation period is underway in the NFL. Some teams have already reportedly agreed to deals. Browns have not really done anything quite yet. Let's take a look at this. They did restructure the contract of Deshaun Watson, as was expected. Clears about $36 million in cap space, getting that number down from where it was to where they end up. So as we look at the current cap available, Browns currently about $20 million under. You see A.J. Green's contract. We'll talk a little bit about that. Post-designation for June 2nd cut of John Johnson. Also, this news comes in. Javon Hargrave, who was supposed to be one of the Browns' higher profile guys they were targeting. He has agreed to a 4-year, $84 million deal, $40 million of that guaranteed with the San Francisco 49ers. Came down to the 49ers and the Browns, reportedly. Adam Schefter reports that. And Hargrave decided to sign with the 49ers. Let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So free agency underway, from brownzone.com, as well as the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. I saw you shaking your head. I apologize for that, Scott.
No problem.
I am on a roll here. A little bit of a surprise with, Hargrave, especially the number. It's even a little bit more than you thought it might be.
Yeah, it certainly sets the bar high for defensive tackles. I think the Browns were interested in him, but I think they feel like they have other options at defensive tackle and didn't maybe have to sell out and set the market there with him. I know they would have liked having him on their team. He's a really good player, might have been the best free agent on the market at any position. But I think Andrew Berry and company believe they have options.
Yeah, and the other thing that we found out is the Daron Payne contract, 4 years, $90 million, so higher than expected numbers. There's also this news that comes out. So the Ravens have moved on from Calais Campbell. Now, that's a guy that is a little bit older than you would really want. But if you're looking at a one-year deal, it's kind of interesting. They could go that route. The Falcons have also agreed to terms with another defensive tackle that the Browns were somewhat linked to in David Onyemata, as Mike Garafolo tweets that out. So, again, the defensive tackles coming off the board, but it was a deep class of free agent tackles.
Yeah, the Calais Campbell thing's interesting. I've always admired him and thought he'd be a good fit for the Browns. The Ravens, in their announcement that he was being released, left open the door for him to return. So, I would certainly not rule that out. But if you could get him for 1 year, I think he can still play. He'd be a great guy in the locker room. He's a Walter Payton Man of the Year guy in NFL circles. You'd have to augment that position as well. I don't think you just rely on Calais Campbell to be, a 50-snap a game kind of guy at his age. But I like that idea. But yeah, there's other options out there. Draymond Jones is the obvious one from Denver, the St. Ignatius and Ohio State alum. Or the Browns could pursue a trade. It feels like there might be options out there for teams looking to save money on the salary cap space. The Browns are just willing to take on a big contract.
Yeah, without question. Again, we're talking with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter, Elyria Chronicle Telegram. Can also check him out, brownzone.com. One of the guys that, I thought the Browns might have some interest in re-signing, Chase Winovich. He has reportedly agreed to a contract with the Texans, so he will be reunited with Nick Caserio. Some other news for the Browns. The Browns are re-signing A.J. Green. We have alluded to that. They didn't tender him as an exclusive rights free agent, but they did agree to a deal to keep him there. Additionally, since we've later in the day, they agreed to a deal with Ethan Posick. So 3 years, $18 million. It'll be interesting to see how they structure that. I'm guessing that'll be pushed back, so the cap hit won't be quite as much in this free agent season. And the other thing that is coming out is the Browns will likely agree to a deal with Sione Takitaki, $1.25 million, reportedly what that's going to be. So, again, the Posick deal it's interesting. You want Posick there because he played well. Takitaki, that leads me to believe they think he's going to be okay, and he'll give them some linebacking play. But again, the defensive line needs some help.
Yeah, there's no question. The D-line, I mean, they need a D-tackle and a D-end, right? I mean, we know that. I really believe that that's the prime target for Andrew Berry. And, it feels like, oh, my gosh, free agency's getting away. It's 4 hours into the negotiating, right? There's plenty of time left. There's plenty of guys out there. I think, like we talked about, I think the tackle class is deep. I don't think the end class is as deep. But there's targets out there for the Browns. Marcus Davenport from New Orleans is one. I always like the idea of Philadelphia's Brandon Graham, but he's going to stay with the Eagles. But when you talk about Posick, that's a key re-signing for the Browns. I thought he was going to be gone because he played so well a year ago. I just thought he priced himself out of the market for the Browns, but he's going to come back. I'm sure you're right about structuring the contract. It won't be a ton this year. It means the Browns bring back all 5 starting offensive linemen, and that's important, especially with how well Posick played last year when he was pressed into service.
Again, Scott, I know you wrote this article. Take us through it. So 5 questions facing the Browns heading into free agency. Can they land their man? Who will be the bookend? How important is safety? What about receiver? And bring them back, question marks. So take us through that article that you wrote for the Lyric Chronicle Telegram. It's also on brownzone.com.
Yeah, I mean, the first one is, can they land their man? And it started with Javon Hargrave, right? He felt like he was the number 1 target. And obviously that's not going to happen. He's going to the 49ers. So then do they get their number 2 or number 3 guy, right? The bookend for Miles, I think it's really important. Jadeveon Clowney was a temporary fit there, or temporary fill there. And now they need to find a replacement for Clowney. And Alex Wright's not ready. So, do they go get a guy that can come in for a couple of years? Do they commit to a young guy, which they really haven't done since Andrew Berry's been in charge? It's been Olivier Vernon and then Jadeveon Clowney. Davenport, who I mentioned, is, I think, 26, 27. A couple other guys I've heard their names mentioned are in that age, kind of coming up for that second contract. And I like going that way with, a guy that's not going to break the bank, but gives you the potential to be around for a while and maybe grow and meet his potential with the Browns. Safety and receiver, I think are interesting. You hear a lot of big names. Jesse Bates at safety, McCole Hardman at receiver. I think those are 2 positions the Browns can save some money, save some cap room by not chasing a big money free agent. Maybe go second tier, third tier at both spots, and then kind of backfill in the draft. I would like, at safety, maybe a Brandon Joseph in the draft, and then you sign somebody else, right? Somebody who's some starting experience in case Joseph isn't ready to start. At receiver, could it be a Paris Campbell / Tyler Scott combination, and you add those guys to Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones? I like the sound of that. And then bring them back. It starts with Posick, and then it's just, for me, to the linebackers. You mentioned Takitaki. I know there's interest in both sides. It just makes sense. Takitaki played really well last year, even when he had to play in the middle. He got kind of forced in there, played really well before the ACL. But there's just not going to be a market for him because he's coming off the ACL, might not be ready. I know people around him think he's going to be ready for the start of the year, but you're not going to see him work out, right? It's just a question mark, and the Browns just I think there's more of a comfort level there. And then Anthony Walker Jr. is the other guy.
Yeah. Without question, Walker played really well a season ago. All right. The other thing to point out about Jones is a guy that, he's kind of versatile. So Draymond Jones, who you mentioned could be a DT tackle, a DT target rather. They can kick him out. He did kick out and play some end. So you get that dual threat. The trade-off is he's not as big as you might want as a defensive tackle.
Yeah, to me that's interesting. Denver played a lot of 3-4 with him, so he was kind of the 3-4 end, which is kind of stuck between the 4-3 D tackle and 4-3 end that the Browns use. So how exactly would he fit is a question. I think, if you want to spin it positive, you say, okay, it gives you the versatility to play end if you need him to in big packages, and then I'm sure would rush from inside, on third down in passing situations. I think the Browns like the idea of that. Plus, just from the combine, talking to Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, when Jim Schwartz, the new defensive coordinator, is brought up, they really stressed his flexibility. And I don't think he's tied into, okay, this defensive tackle has to be 320 pounds. I think they can live with the guy that's 285. I think that's what Jones is. I think they're comfortable with that guy as long as he's quick and explosive and can attack up the field.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, before we go to break, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Fred from Cleveland. I just had a couple things on my wish list. I don't know if they're passable, but we got 2 4s, 2 5s. How about a 4th and a 5th to Arizona? DeAndre said he'd rework his contract. Then a 4th and a 5th to Indianapolis for DeForest Buckner, and then sang Hargrave, I believe. And that could solve a lot of problems. And if you got 3 guys that are good route runners, I don't think you need a deep threat. They can scramble the field. You know how it works. But as always, great show, Dave. I love you, brother, and be safe.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. So, Scott, obviously, Browns were thinking Hargrave, didn't get him. I don't know that you trade for 2 guys like that. They're going to want to you got to get some of the younger guys in with even with your 4th and 5th round picks. Buckner would be that's going to be interesting. If you could get him for that probably makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I like that option. I do. You're not giving away the farm, right? A 5th round pick, if it takes a 4th and a 5th, I don't think Andrew Berry would hesitate to do that. They have 8 draft picks. There's a bunch in that region. They might trade down from 42 to add even more picks. So I like that idea. It's a lot like that Amari Cooper trade last year. You just find a team that is not comfortable paying a guy what he's due, and you can kind of take advantage of that situation. And if Buckner's that guy, he's a proven force. He's not that old. He's a tall guy. He's played on that 49ers front four, which is really good, and went to the Super Bowl. So I really like that idea, and I think that's the kind of thing Andrew Berry is searching for, right? And is really exploring, especially now that Hargrave is off the table. Hopkins, I'm not as convinced about Hopkins. He feels older to me. I don't think he's a quick twitch, downfield, stretch the field type of guy that the Browns are looking for.
Yeah, and I think he's probably still going to want more money than they're going to want to tie up in a receiver in addition to the $20 million a year they're paying Amari Cooper. Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We will continue talking Browns and free agency. Stay with us.
The Great Lakes Collectors Convention, presented by Greenie Sports Cards, takes over the Fieldhouse in Independence, Ohio, where the passions of sports fans, collectors, and sports talk enthusiasts collide. 50,000 square feet of ball card bliss. Hundreds of display tables. Card Shop Live Theater with interactive appearances from the region's most notable sports media. Great cards, great location, great show. Tickets on sale now at GreenieSportsCards.com.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, I'm checking you guys out. I think we need to change Andrew Berry's name, or give him a new name, and call him Mr. Houdini. The running backs core that he's been a part of to present day. Just think about it. He's pretty good. But Houdini keep pulling tricks off. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, if he finds a way to get a wide receiver and a D tackle that we like, I'll buy into Mr. Houdini. In fairness, I like a lot of the trades that he's made, some of the free agents. No GM is going to hit 1,000 at free agency. You just don't. And you usually have to overpay for free agents. That's just the nature of the game.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at Andrew Berry's 3 years. There's been misses, right? John Johnson III feels like a miss because they cut him this year before will cut him this year before the 3rd season. Austin Hooper was a miss, but there's hits. Jack Conklin, I feel like he's a hit. Other guys they brought in maybe on shorter term contracts who stuck around and had an impact. Anthony Walker is one that just jumps to the forefront of my mind. But the draft's been hit or miss. That's just the way it is. Now, if they win this year, right, and get it turned around, and all of a sudden you point to Deshaun Watson's playing great, then that reshapes how you think about Andrew Berry. I think right now, it's kind of a incomplete grade I would give him because there's one playoff season, 2 missed seasons. I like the roster, but it is underachieved the last couple of years. So what has to me is obvious from his time is he's not afraid to be aggressive, whether that's trade, free agency, or the draft. He will be aggressive, and I expect that to continue this year in free agency, even if we haven't seen it in the first 4 hours.
Yeah, the other thing I would say, I've kind of seen the plan. There's been a method to the madness in what he's done, and you couldn't always say that in the regimes prior to his. So it hasn't worked out always, but I at least have kind of understood what he was trying to do.
There's no doubt, real quick, it's all about talent, right? If the guys you bring in, are they the right guys? Because I do believe, I agree 100%, the plan is solid.
All right, and I know you've done this in your mailbag segment. Top 5 moves Andrew Berry should make in the offseason.
Yeah, well, it starts with D-tackle, like we talked about, and it can be any of those guys. It can be Hargrave, it can be Jones, it can be Buckner. I like the idea of that. The defensive end, I think it has to be a guy with experience, right? That can go opposite Myles Garrett. It can't be Alex Wright. I think it needs to be someone with some upside that's in the middle of their career, not at the end of their career necessarily. And you compare that with a draft guy. Like, I just like that idea of doubling down. It's a free agent in the draft. Same thing with safety, same thing with receiver. I mentioned the Calais Campbell, Tyler Scott tandem. I really liked that idea. And then, Ethan Posick was on that list for me because that would have created a hole. And the Browns have enough holes. Now, yes, you could have tried to slide Nick Harris in there, but Nick Harris has only started 2 games. He's coming off a season where he didn't play, and he got injured in the preseason, and the knee injury cost him the whole year. I just feel like center is such an important position. The Browns are trying to protect Deshaun Watson. They're trying to run the ball, all those things that you don't want the question mark there. And I think bringing back Posick is big. I really do. I think it checks an important box off the list.
Yeah, I can understand people saying that you haven't seen enough of Harris to know if he's going to be an effective center in the NFL. I think that's an absolutely fair question to ask. Let me ask you this. So we're 4 hours and 18 minutes into free agency. Knowing what we know, what do you think would be a home run for Andrew Berry in free agency?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's got to be one of those D tackles, right? Jones or Buckner, somebody along those lines. Maybe Allen from Arizona. An end, and again, it could be any of those guys. Those are the 2 spots. Like, to me, that's the main focus. We can talk about the need for speed at receiver, and yes, that's a need. We can talk about safety, which obviously there's a glaring opening because of the John Johnson III move. But I feel like you can fill those spots easier than you can the D-line. So I think it's big-time D-tackle, a relatively big-time D-end, a guy who's going to come in and be your starter. And then it's Posick and maybe a couple of those linebackers, Taki and Walker. And then the mid-level guys at safety and receiver. I think you probably have to bring in a veteran receiver and just can't count on the draft, especially when you don't draft to 42 and then now you're not scheduled to draft again until number 98. You probably just can't say, hey, you're going to find the starter safety and the speed guy receiver. That's not a guarantee. So I would say it's probably 4 or 5 guys that they bring in from the outside. But the D line to me will be the big name guys. And right now, you say those are the starters guaranteed.
Yeah, they need guys that can come in and stop what was ailing them a season ago without question. This is kind of interesting. So this is the net trade value from draft picks, not including any players. So since 2011, it is John Schneider who has netted the most positive value from draft trades. And then 6th is Andrew Berry. So it's the Seahawks, the Colts, the Patriots, the Rams, the Buccaneers, and then the Browns. And when you get talking about the Rams and the Buccaneers, they kind of pushed everything in the middle of the table and went for Super Bowl, runs and got to the Super Bowl. But it's kind of interesting to see Andrew Berry has had since 2011, so it's a little bit before, but Andrew Berry has had a lot of success in turning draft capital into players.
Yeah, and again, we can quibble about plenty of stuff this organization does. To me, I never wonder, are they smart enough? I never wonder, okay, is this plan strategically sound? I think they know what they're doing in those aspects. It's just a matter of, do they match that up with the correct talent evaluation? And if they do that, then I think that's how you become extremely successful. But when Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta go up and down the draft board, I feel like they really have a plan in place when they do that.
All right, before we go to break, we talked a little bit about this before we started the show. It appears that defensive tackle is going to be like this year's wide receiver. The numbers of the early signings have been higher than expected. Given that, do you think that makes it more likely that Andrew Berry finds a way to acquire some veteran defensive linemen via trade?
I do. That's what was going to be my answer, Dave, is, maybe that's why hasn't been a Draymond Jones deal yet. I don't know that. I'm just, speculating. Maybe the numbers are just what the Browns aren't comfortable with, and maybe they want to pursue the trade option. And again, I flash back to Amari Cooper. Remember, Dallas didn't want to pay him the $20 million. They had CeeDee Lamb. They had other guys. The Browns took that on, and all of a sudden, Christian Kirk signs for like $19 million with the Jaguars, and $19 million a year. In the Cooper, $20 million seems like a steal, and I felt that way from the time it happened throughout the season. So the Browns are ahead of the market there when they signed Cooper. Now they're kind of chasing the market a little bit because you have the Payne extension with the Commanders. You have the Hargrave deal with the 49ers. But I feel like Andrew Berry is trying to maybe beat that market by making one of those trades.
Scott Petrak and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out of the side of the break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about offense for the Browns, trying to add via free agency. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. We're talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, brownzone.com. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Lifelong Browns fan here, up in Alaska. Hey, with all the disrespect that Deshaun Watson is getting, no media respect, nothing, ranked so low, I gotta believe he's gonna play like his heart is on fire next year to prove everybody wrong. What do you guys think? Go Browns. Hoo, hoo.
So I appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play really well, we're in for another teardown. I believe if it goes south, it's not going to be pretty.
It's not. Yeah, I don't know what they would do. Like, I would assume people get fired. I don't know if, Watson could be traded as a start over, or you just has them shoot big and try to bring in a coach in that wants to coach Watson, because you're still paying him a ton of money for the next 3 years after 2023. So, yeah, it's a huge year for Watson. Yeah, I expect him to be motivated. I don't know if I buy the disrespect thing. I mean, I don't think anybody's questioned him as a player. It's all the criticism has been about him off the field. And any recent criticism about him as a player is because he didn't play very well those last 6 games.
Yeah. This is also kind of interesting. So Odell Beckham Jr. worked out for a number of teams, Browns being one of them. So it's Panthers, Giants, Patriots, Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, Bills, Chiefs, Vikings, Browns, and Ravens were available. You'll see the patented one-handed grab. Not only that, catching the end of the football. Take a look at this one. This looking like a catcher here on the little route going back, backhands it. Dov Kleiman tweets out that he is hearing that Odell is looking for $20 million a year per Mike Florio. I can't imagine that that he's going to get close to that. But I guess where I'm going to go with this, is there any way you could see the Browns bringing back Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, yeah, at first the $20 million seems, absurd. He didn't play last year, and I get it's a depressed free agent receiver market. I get that, and I think you can make a legitimate argument that Odell's the best receiver available. Now, he didn't play last year. He's coming off 2 ACLs. $20 million seems like a big reach to me. As far as him coming back to the Browns, I guess I'm not willing to close the door because they went to that workout, which opened the door. Doing their due diligence. It's been a while, I guess a year has passed, more than a year since the divorce in 2021. But having said all that, he quit on this team. And The GM's the same, the coach is the same, the owners are the same. And if I were in any of those spots, I don't care how popular he is in the locker room. I couldn't trust him. And it's not like and I don't buy that it was all about Baker Mayfield. I've heard that Odell asked for a trade multiple times throughout multiple years when he was here. So I think that's just his personality. I don't know if would ever be content here. Maybe not anywhere. I wouldn't bring him back. I think it's risky, even though he fits what you want to do, quick twitch and deep threat, and probably loves Deshaun Watson. I would not bring him back, and I think it's risky, and I think that would be too much money.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, and I don't think I'm not buying that he's a locker room cancer or any of that. I just, for this spot, because of what happened here before, in the front office bent over backwards, gave him what he wanted. I don't think I would do that if I were the Browns. As you might expect, a lot of people with an opinion about the Browns wide receivers and Odell Beckham. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, what's up? So I got an idea, and I know I'm going to get some slack for this one, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here's how the Browns could shore up their receiver core relatively cheap, I think. They already got Amari Cooper. They already got Peoples-Jones. They already got David Njoku. How about also them having Odell Beckham Jr.? And the last guy just happens to be Josh Gordon. If the guy is finally ready, it would be nice to bring him back for a year. And just imagine them with our quarterback, and he has all that to throw to, plus he has a running game, and the Browns could concentrate in the draft pretty much just on the defense. Anyway, I'd like to hear what you guys think. Thanks.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I would stay away from both of them. And again, I don't think either of them are bad guys. I just don't think you want to go revisit that with either of them.
No, I'm with you. And, I know Josh is tearing it up. It's XFL, right?
Yep.
But he's been given multiple shots in the last several years in the NFL with good teams and hasn't been able to stick. He's on the Chiefs and just was on their practice squad, couldn't find his way to the active roster. So I feel like that ship has sailed. And I also feel like, if you've been burned multiple times by a player, a person, I get second chances and all that, but why take on that? Why leave yourself vulnerable to it happening again? So I know Josh is a great talent, or was a great talent, and might still be, but there's other people that can play receiver in this world.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm not saying he shouldn't get an opportunity. I'm just saying I don't think if I were the Browns, I would bring either of them back. This is also kind of interesting. This is Dan Graziano tweeting this out. Sources with multiple teams believe the Broncos could trade a wide receiver. Has had talks with teams about Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Teams say the Broncos are asking high prices, not just dumping. But it is not out of the question that one of them gets moved. I don't know that the Browns would necessarily give high prices. Again, if you want to give me Courtland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy for a third, I'd do that.
Yeah, I like the idea of Jeudy. I think he's that quick twitch guy that we've talked about. Sutton feels bigger to me. I like him, but he doesn't feel that different to me than maybe DPJ, where I think Jeudy is. I think Judy's a big-time talent. I don't know if he's shown that in the NFL so far, but I like that idea. The Browns. I don't think the Browns would give up their number 2. I don't think they would trade high picks down the road, just given what they gave up for Deshaun Watson. But if you could get him for that 3rd, 4th round and take on, I don't think Judy's making a ton of money. I like that idea. I just don't know if they'd be able to win that, what could be a bidding war given just their lack of big-time draft picks coming up.
Yeah, because Jeudy is, to your point, he's the type of talent that teams are going to, if we get him in here in our system, we can really, give him the opportunity to turn things around and be a star. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk a little bit about what the Browns front office might be thinking moving forward. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys, this is Dan in Maryland, out in Ravens country. Really enjoying all the hand-wringing and gnashing of teeth over Lamar Jackson and what Deshaun Watson's contract has done to that situation. All I can say is, I think Andrew Berry is definitely a man who's read the art of war, that it is a great warrior who wins without fighting. And you look at the situation the Ravens are in now, and I think other teams are probably going to be in that in the future, whether it's Chargers or the Jaguars or the Bengals. And Andrew Berry, the man is definitely winning without fighting right now. So anyhow, go Browns. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I think, without question, I think Deshaun Watson's contract has impacted negotiations for Lamar Jackson. But I think as you get further away from the contract, if nobody else guarantees full money, it becomes more of an outlier that it will be easier for teams to negotiate around.
Oh, there's no doubt. And, Andrew Berry was asked about that at the Combine, and he said he did not think it was going to become kind of the template for quarterbacks. He doesn't know that for sure, but that's kind of what his feeling was. And while this might benefit the Browns, right, because Lamar Jackson could wind up somewhere else or it fractures the relationship with the Ravens, I don't think that was the design of the contract that the Browns gave Deshaun Watson. I think it was all about how do you land him. They felt like he was the best quarterback option. They didn't like the other options available. And the only way they felt they could land him was by guaranteeing that money. And that's what they did. I think everything else is kind of, collateral damage, so to speak.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. They looked at it and said, we need a quarterback. We like this quarterback. How do we get this quarterback? And the answer was guarantee the contract. And they were right. This is also kind of interesting. So Jeremy Fowler tweets, the Chargers are expected to pursue free agent safety John Johnson III. He's going to be released by the Browns this week. With the Chargers, he would be reunited with Brandon Staley, his defensive coordinator from the Rams when he was so successful. So, again, it's a guy that in Staley, who's kind of looking at it going, I know how we can use you and better, showcase your skill set.
Yeah, and I do think that was an issue with John Johnson III in Cleveland, is he was asked to play a lot of deep middle, and not that he's not good at that role, but with the with the Rams, with Staley, it was a lot of all over the place. He played some slot, he played close to the line of scrimmage, maybe like that undersized linebacker, the rover kind of type of guy. And he didn't have that role with the Browns. And for whatever reason, it wasn't a great fit. He didn't make enough plays to warrant the salary that he'd been given or the contract he'd been given. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for Brandon Staley and John Johnson III to hook up again. And while we're talking safeties, NFL Network is reporting Jesse Bates is going to go to the Falcons. So I know there's been a lot of talk about the Browns landing him to replace Johnson. They're going to have to look elsewhere. So,
yeah, here is Adam Schefter tweeting that out, that Jesse Bates will be signing with, it's Ian Rappaport, actually. 4-year deal, $16 million per year. Fourth highest paid safety in NFL history. So again, Jesse Bates signing with the Falcons. Ian Rappaport reporting that it's $16 million. So that's a good chunk of money. That again, with the Browns' cap dilemma and the needs, you really can't afford to sink 16 or 20 million into, a safety when you need so much help on the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion, Dave, is, if you're going to pay John Johnson the third 13 and then all of a sudden it's a bump to 16, yeah, you think Bates is a better player, but can't you fill it cheaper? Right? I mean, I think that's what it boils down to. Where can you save money? If you're spending all on D-line, not all, but a bunch of D-line, ton of quarterback, offensive line, I think you need to save, and I think safety is one of those spots.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The difference between Jesse Bates playing free safety and whatever free agent or draft pick, it's not going to be relative to the $10 or $12 million more that Jesse Bates is going to require or did require. Falcons, again, signing Jesse Bates. I know you've addressed this in your mailbag. Which rookies from last season do you think the front office is really excited to see?
Yeah, I kind of answered it by saying, well, the front office loves its draft picks, so I'm sure it's excited to see everyone. But it was also the coaching staff. Who was the coaching staff looking forward to? And, I start with, when I think about Jerome Ford, right? He's got a chance to be that number 2 back behind Nick Chubb. I think that's a real possibility. The Browns could bring back Dearness Johnson, but then there'd be a battle. I think they really liked Ford, and he showed some things as that kickoff returner a year ago. Martin Emerson Jr. obviously played really well as a rookie. I know that the coaching staff was immediately impressed by him when he showed up, like to say, on campus a year ago. When they drafted him and he showed up for rookie minicamp, he blew away the coaches. So I know they want to see him in year 2, and how does he fit with Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome II. That's going to be interesting to watch. And then, you have Cade York, new special teams coordinator. What happens there in year 2 needs to be more consistent, obviously. And then Perry Winfrey, to me, is kind of that question mark. He's so immature a year ago. That was obvious when they benched him for that Jets game, sent him home from practice one day. But I think he's got a lot of potential. And maybe Jim Schwartz unlocks that, especially with that attacking, get-up-the-field defense that feels like what Winfrey does best from that tackle spot. So I think there's a lot of intrigue on how Winfrey can play in year 2.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a guy that I'm really interested to see. Can he take a big jump forward in this defensive scheme with Jim Schwartz? All right, before I let you go, again, this one's from your mailbag. Do you think the Browns would rather have 4 picks in the top 111, but none of them in the top 50? So trading back from 42 into the 50s, acquiring some additional picks, or would they rather keep 42 and have a couple less in the top 111?
Yeah, Dave, the more I think about this, and, the combine, that you talk to all these guys, like, okay, who might be their number 42? I don't think they're going to be at 42. I really don't. I think they're going to trade back that gap from 42 to 98, because they don't have a third-round pick until 98, and that's a compensatory pick for losing Kwesi Adofo-Mensah to be Vikings general manager. That's just a big gap. And there's so many players that you would expect to be immediate contributors that you get at the end of the second round, beginning of the third round. So, if they can turn number 42 into, let's say, 65 and 80, I think that's where they would go. And the only exception would be if there was a guy that they had, let's say, ranked in the top 20, and he fell to 42 in a premium position, then maybe you stick at 42. But I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And there are, by all accounts, a number of guys that are similar in the range that you're talking about, from 50 to 111. There's not a cliff type of drop off like there is a little bit later.
And if you fill the big needs, right, the DT tackle, DN, the premium spots, then I feel like you can complement safety and receiver a little later. And I don't know if you spend 42 and kind of go push all your chips in with the guy at 42 at one of those two spots. It's not the end, it's not the tackle, it's not corner. I just feel like, and plus the organizational philosophy is, the more picks you have, the better chance, right? It's a little bit of a crapshoot, so you improve your chances with the more picks.
Yep. As always, Scott Petrak, appreciate you joining us during the first couple of hours of free agency period. Thanks very much, Scott. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. Browns beat reporter, Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. Online, you can check him out at brownzone.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tyler Johnson straight ahead, talking more Browns free agency. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on the opening of legal tampering in NFL free agency. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, hi, this is Ron from Cleveland. I feel like even if we don't get another good wide receiver, I think our offense is still going to be okay with what we got. But I think great defenses win championships. And if we can get, in my opinion, one of the guys from Philly in the middle, 2 would be great, and spend the money on Clark on the outside to give a legitimate pass rush from both sides and in the middle. I seriously think if we can put together a massive rush in the front end of our defense, we're going to win a championship. Looks like Jackson is going to be leaving, and that'll take our opposition down to us and the Bengals. And with our defense the way it is, we seem to be having the Bengals number anyway. This might be our year. I say it every year, but I think this could be our year if our defense can be what it could be. Thanks a lot, guys. As always, love your show, and go Browns. Woof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tyler Johnson, Faithful Dogs podcast, as well as Network 216. So, Tyler, when you look at it, Jesse Bates now off the market, as is Hargrave. I'm not one of these guys, and I've been on the record as saying I want them to get 3 or 4 guys that are solid, competent, can make a difference kind of defensive linemen so that rotation can have 6, 7, 8 defensive tackles. What are your thoughts as the defensive tackle and end market seems to be a little bit higher price points than we initially thought?
Yeah, Dave. I mean, with Javon Hargrave going to the 49ers, Adam Schefter reported that actually it was between the Browns and the 49ers for Javon Hargrave, which I thought was interesting. Also, your colleague Mary Kay Cabot just broke the news that the Browns are signing defensive end Ogbo Okoroh from the Texans on a 3-year deal. So I just wanted to give you that information because she just broke that news. But anyway, looking at the defensive tackle market, it's been really high so far. When Hargrave is getting that much money, that's a problem. I think it's interesting that the Browns are also in on Draymond Jones, according to one, Mary Kay Cabot, but also Broncos insider Benjamin Albright. It looks like they're going to be addressing that position, but you saw David Onyemata get a 12-year contract at his age, and he's not even at the same level as Draymond Jones or Javon Hargrave. That tells you that the Browns are going to have to be very selective with this process. I'm with you. I would love to see him go out and add a couple guys at that particular position. But at the same time, it looks like Andrew Berry is gonna dip his toes in this market. And if he can find a deal that he believes makes the Cleveland Browns better, he's going to go for it. And at the end of the day, I trust them to handle the cap situation. But if you go out and get a big name player like that, it just makes you wonder how much they're going to be able to afford to round out the rest of the roster.
And let's take a look. So Mary Kay Cabot is tweeting out. Here's the Jack Duffin tweet on defensive tackle. So Draymond Jones, Chancey Gardner-Johnson, and McCole Hardman, as well as DJ Chark, are the free agent targets. But here's the deal that we're talking about. Browns have reached a agreement on a 3-year deal with free agent rusher Ogbo Okoroh, and that's a younger guy that is kind of ascending for the Houston Texans. You had mentioned that, so it's a 3-year deal. Take us through. I know you've talked about him in the past on our show. What do you like about him? What are the Browns getting with?
The Browns are getting someone that I believe just has a tremendous motor first and foremost. I think that's very important when playing the defensive end position. And I would say that was one of the biggest things I didn't like about Jadeveon Clowney is you would see him seem to take plays off from time to time. Okoroh is a guy that I identified early in free agency as a target for the Browns. He's only going to be 28 this upcoming season. Since week 7, 88.5 pass rush grade. According to Pro Football Focus, 22.9% pass rush win rate during that time, which was 6th best among edge rushers, 17.5% pressure percentage, which ranked 8th among edge rushers since week 7. He got a higher uptick in snaps this year, 75.1 overall grade. I think he's going to be fantastic next to Myles Garrett. And I also don't believe the Browns are done adding at edge rusher. I also would watch the name DeMarcus Walker, who is coming from the Tennessee Titans. Looks like he could be had on a $3 to $4 million a year contract. He excelled working in Jim Schwartz's and the Titans overall system last year. But Jim Schwartz likes those bigger defensive ends, so I would keep an eye on that. But Okoroh checks everything you want as a defensive end for the Browns. High motor. The contract is very favorable for what they're getting with him and a player. So I'm very excited about this addition for the Browns.
And here is some of the details of that contract from Mary Kay Cabot. 3 years, $19 million up to $22 million, 12.5 of it guaranteed. And again, you can be sure the way that Andrew Berry structures contracts, it'll be a lower hit in the first year, and it will be higher and backloaded because the Browns need some flexibility to go out and get a couple of more guys.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the types of contracts you want to see Andrew Berry making. And this is a guy, like I said, it's not a break-the-bank signing at defensive end. This allows you to still groom Alex Wright because he's raw. That we knew that coming out of UAB. But you could start to see the potential that he has at not only defensive end, but being able to slide in from time to time, play defensive tackle. I think that's why you see, Dave, the Browns going after a guy like Draymond Jones. I know it's going to be a little higher end on that deal, but he can play inside, he can play outside. And what do we know about Andrew Berry, about his moves that he likes to make? He likes to make moves with players that are versatile, not necessarily just plug and play one certain position and that's it. And I think Jim Schwartz loves a type of signing like this. I can't wait to see how Andrew Berry rounds this out. I know fans were getting a little restless because the Browns didn't make a move exactly at 12:01. That doesn't mean, as we see now, that they're not working the phones. It takes two to make a deal. And as much as we don't like to hear it, sometimes we have to just be patient and let Andrew Berry work. This is a big year for the Browns, and this signing is a great step in the right direction for retooling the defense.
All right, some other guys that were targets: Draymond Jones, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a safety, wide receiver Mecole Hardman, DJ Chark. Let's take a look at free agent defensive tackle pressure percentage. Again, we saw this a little bit earlier. It's from Jack Duffin. So Hargrave led the way, 12.9% pressure rating percentage when he was rushing. Morgan Fox, 10.8. Draymond Jones is up there at 10.0. Matt Ioannidis, 9.8. Onyemata, who signed, 9.1. Fletcher Cox, still out there, 8.9. Dalvin Tomlinson, another guy that is on the Browns' kind of radar at 8.6. So those are Cox and Tomlinson, a little bit older guys that might be 1 year, 2 year fixes. When you look at that, are you opposed to them bringing in say Jones gets 18 million, 19 million? I don't know that they're going to go 20 million for any one guy, but I'm not opposed to them trying to bring in Ioannidis, Cox, Tomlinson at a more reasonable, lesser end deal.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Dave. I even tweeted that. It's funny, I actually tweeted out before this all started, free agency started today, that I don't see Andrew Berry going over 20 million for a player. Now, I think anything under that, if you can get Draymond Jones, I think it's no secret Draymond Jones wants to come back to Cleveland, just judging by the article with Mary Kay Cabot. But also, it seems like he's been very open about coming back to Cleveland. If you can get Draymond Jones in that $15 to $18 million range, I think Andrew Berry would do that. Now, is it a move I would make? I'm not a huge fan at that price point because, again, I'd rather just go out and add a guy like Matt Ioannidis for $6.5 million per year. That's just a solid all-around defensive tackle, but also can move out to play edge rusher, which he can do. I'd rather go get, because you can get Matt Ioannidis and Fletcher Cox potentially for the same price that it would cost for Draymond Jones. Now, if you go out and get Draymond Jones, a name I really like is Ashawn Robinson. I really like him as a one technique, a straight up nose tackle that is really good against the run. So, and he's looking at a price point of 1 year, $2.5 to $3 million. If you go Draymond Jones, Ashawn Robinson seems to me like that's someone the Browns would immediately target after that because he would be a really good fit with what they're looking for because you already then have that pass rushing defensive tackle that they like in Draymond Jones.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm with you on Ashawn Robinson. Like him as well. Tyler Johnson and I are going to step aside, take one more time out on the other side of the break. We'll continue talking Browns free agency, maybe a little trade scenario too. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
The Great Lakes Collectors Convention, presented by Greenie Sports Cards, takes over the Fieldhouse in Independence, Ohio, where the passions of sports fans, collectors, and sports talk enthusiasts collide. 50,000 square feet of ball card bliss. Hundreds of display tables. Card Shop Live Theater with interactive appearances from the region's most notable sports media. Great cards, great location, great show. Tickets on sale now at greeniesportscards.com.
We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs podcast as well as Network 216. So, Tyler, let me ask you this. Potential trade candidates. Who do you think the Browns, Andrew Berry, might be targeting?
So, some names that Mary Kay Cabot, your colleague, has mentioned, Brandon Cooks and Elijah Moore are the ones that really stand out as far as on her list. First off, with Brandon Cooks, we know the contract is not very favorable. It's just not. But the thing with Cooks is you can redo that contract similar to what Andrew Berry did when he acquired Amari Cooper, and you can turn a good portion of that into a signing bonus. So with him due $18 million this year, I think he could reduce that because Brandon Cooks for 2024 doesn't have any guaranteed salary. So maybe you work out a mini extension along those lines if you acquire a guy like Brandon Cooks. And I think you could do it for a reasonable price. I think you could get him for maybe a pick 98 or even a 4th-round pick. And I think the Browns would explore that possibility to reunite him with Deshaun Watson. Elijah Moore. I mean, Dave, Elijah Moore is my dream if the Browns can find a way to add him. He's on a rookie contract first and foremost. He's only going to be making $2.4 million this year. And he's everything you want. He can play outside. He can play inside. And he brings speed to the position. He brings really good route running. He has a knack for getting open. Didn't have a great year this past year. For the Jets, he had some issues with Robert Saleh, the head coach, complaining about quarterback Zach Wilson, and it was just a mess with the Jets this year. But if the Jets are still looking to move Elijah Moore, and I think they might because Elijah Moore really is not happy just with the front office in general, and there's a lot of turmoil there, I would look for the Browns to make a move there. But one player I want to bring up, and we actually brought it up when we discussed a possible Greg Newsome swap, I believe a couple shows ago, and that is Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos. It was reported by Dan Graziano of ESPN that the Broncos, they're not ignoring calls on Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. If the Browns can go get themselves Jerry Jeudy, would be a great pickup. I think it would cost pick 42. So if you're comfortable giving up pick 42 for Jerry Jeudy, who again is another guy on a rookie contract, he would be a great addition to the wide receiver room. So those are the 3 names I would watch. And either way, they're going to be really upgrading that wide receiver position. But I think it's more likely that they're going to do it via trade and the draft as opposed to this free agency class.
Yeah, I would keep an eye. The way 42 for Jeudy might make sense if they don't do anything in free agency with one of the lower to middle tier wide receivers. I would listen out for that potential with 42 and Jerry Jeudy without question. We talked a little bit about A'Shawn Robinson. That's a guy kind of a little bit under the radar. Do you have any other under the radar guys to listen out for that you think would be really good signings in free agency for the Browns?
Yeah, so a name that really – I already mentioned DeMarcus Walker first and foremost. I think he's perfect for what you're looking for as a third edge that can rotate with a Okonkwo and even give Myles Garrett a blow from time to time. If you go out and get DeMarcus Walker, you have your defensive end sorted right there. You're done. Defensive tackle, A'Shawn Robinson for me is that guy. I doubt the Browns are looking corner, but they did hint that they wanted to address slot corner. And if you can go out and get Bryce Callahan from the Chargers, he would be a cheap addition. He's looking at about a $2 million contract for 1 year. He is one of the better slot corners in the NFL. He's about 31 years old, so he's bringing some of that veteran leadership. I would love that deal. Also, 2 other names that I would look at. Braxton Berrios, who was just released from the Jets. The reason I look at him, he can play in the slot. He would be a really cheap addition. And if the Browns aren't 100% on Jakeem Grant, you also have a return man that you can sign at a very reasonable price. And the final guy that I'll say as a sleeper, very cheap contract, Kelvin Beachum, the offensive tackle from the Arizona Cardinals. Looks like you could get him at a 2-year deal at $2 million per year. I think that's something the Browns could look at, especially if they're not 100% confident in James Hudson as being that swing tackle. If you bring in a veteran like Beachum, he can play on both sides of the line, and I think that's something they would look to do at that particular price point. So those are sleepers I would watch out for. I'm so excited for free agents. I've been waiting a long time for this. I know we all have, and this is an exciting time to be a Browns fan. You know the team is going to get better during this time, and I can't wait to see what Andrew Berry has planned for this offseason.
All right, before I let you go, 3 recently released veterans the Browns should reel in. This from Doug Poundaley. Frank Clark, edge rusher from the Chiefs, has some roots here, went to Glenville High School. Adam Thielen, wide receiver for the Vikings. Kevin Stefanski really familiar with him. Leonard Floyd, linebacker from the Los Angeles Rams. Again, these are going to depend on price points. I'm intrigued a little bit by Clark. Frank Clark has a history of playing really well in the postseason. But I got to know the dollar figure. I wouldn't spend double-digit millions on any of those guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I have been on the record for saying I would love Adam Thielen here personally. A lot of fans were not very happy that I said that because the fact that you want speed added to the wide receiver room, which I get. I also think Adam Thielen's going to get a pretty healthy contract, considering, in my opinion, he is the best wide receiver on the market, even at his age. Leonard Floyd, I wouldn't mind him personally, but with the Browns running a 4-3 scheme and him really excelling more as a rush outside linebacker, I don't necessarily see the fit there. But I mean, he would only cost about $7.5 million for a year. I wouldn't mind that signing at all. And Frank Clark is the guy that you mentioned I would be intrigued with the most. He has struggled in the regular season, so that does worry me just a little bit. But that price point that we're looking at is about $6.5 million for 1 year for a soon 30-year-old pass rusher, and you already have a Conquo. I would not mind that as a rotation. So Frank Clark is a guy I would watch, especially being able to bringing him back to Ohio would be awesome. But other than that, I think they would pass on the other two names.
Tyler Johnson, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Good stuff, Tyler. Appreciate it very much.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Tyler Johnson, make sure you check him out. Faithful Dogs Podcast, as well as Network 216. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock with all the free agent news of the day, as well as what happens between now and then. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.